At Your End Step is brought to you by Comic Town and BCW Supplies. Hello, and welcome to At Your End Step. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Mike.
Hey, I'm not alone this time.
Yeah, and Dave.
Is this recording?
This is record. I'm here, so yes.
Okay, that's true. All right.
We got through this part last time. I still have that on my phone.
I know.
Yeah, we got to halfway through the community.
Yeah, there was something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thank you guys for valiant effort, and then Mike for the follow through and getting up an episode last week. Sorry to our listeners, I was very ill.
Yeah, so kind of awkward to announce it like this, but I got a lot of good feedback from my episode last week.
Perfect.
And I
listened to it. I thought it was great.
I'm pretty sure that it's my time to. This is my John Lennon moment.
Oh, you're gonna go
Gonna
solo?
have a spin-off. You have a spin-off podcast. You know what though? That, nobody will ever hear it. But I thought that just me and Mike's podcast was actually really good.
Yeah,
But
I believe it.
nobody will know.
You guys are both
I think
competent adults.
your dog probably heard the whole thing. So.
yeah, he did.
He was running
He's
around.
the only one that knows.
Yeah.
So, but he doesn't think
I don't
very
think
highly of it.
Yeah, he's not telling anyone. So
But I'm well. I'm better than what I once was.
Are you as good once as you ever was?
I think so. But yeah, don't get sick, guys. It's rough. But we know
I
they're
don't
fun.
think anybody's trying to get sick.
No, I guess no one's trying to get sick.
I mean, I think Disturbed was once.
I'm trying to get down.
They were getting down with it.
They were trying to get down with said sickness. I don't know if I don't know if the sickness they were trying to get down with was the same thing I had, because I don't think if they had it they would try to get down.
Probably would
with
have avoided it.
They probably
would have
would've-
crossed the street if they saw that.
it. Yeah, they'd be like, "Oh
Yeah.
no, I don't want anything to do with that sickness."
This time we'll pass. We won't get down with the sickness. Thanks for offering, but we won't get down with the sickness.
That's so nice of you. I won't get down with the sickness.
Get you on the flippity flop. We'll get down.
Is there a gift receipt to return the sickness?
Oh man.
All right, enough of that. We have another fun-filled episode for you folks this week. Next week, of course, we're going to have our Palooza episode for Rivals of Ixalan. But we just had an open, so we wanted to talk about that and touch on the fact that we did get the Rivals, the full spoiler up and everything like that. And of course, we have pre-release this weekend. So wherever you are, your local store, or if you're local to the Columbus area, there's always Comic Town to take care of your pre-release needs, if you'd like. But let's get started. So the only thing I see here under community is the full Rivals of Ixalan spoiler was released on Friday, and yeah, I don't really know. Obviously, we're going to cover a lot of the cards that are on there, and I don't think we really haven't talked about any of the cards because the spoiler season was so fast.
Well, we did.
I did.
We actually went through I don't know, at least a handful of cards.
Yeah,
somewhat at length, and that
I talked about
that's somewhere out in
Lowell
the
with the
ether.
Zola last week, and
Yeah, that's true. That's
that
true.
kind of stuff.
There was a Zora that was talked about.
I think it's an interesting set. I think I'm also glad we're doing the Palooza next week because, to be quite honest, there's a lot of buzz about the possible banning of something, and I'm glad that we'll get a chance to look at the set in full as a review
through that
in
lens,
light of
yeah.
that lens. Yeah, exactly. But I think there's a couple of good cards that we didn't get a chance to see yet. I want to talk about Hadana's Climb for a minute. Can I talk about that card?
Yeah.
So the I think the cycle of flip lands in this set are pretty awesome. The original ones were cool, and I like how they push them into these into the color pairs to really see where they can go. And Hadana's Climb is one that interested me when I first saw it, which is a generic blue-green for a legendary enchantment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter to target creature you control. Then if that creature has 3 or more +1/+1 counters on it, transform Hadana's Climb. On the flip side, as I think they all do except for the Golem one, it taps for any color of mana. Any of the flip enchantments, at least. And then generic blue and green, tap it. Target creature you control gains flying against +X/+X until on a turn where X is its power. Which is pretty good when the flip condition is one of your creatures has to have 3 +1/+1 counters on it already. So it's probably going to be pretty beefy. But this might be a sort of a difficult flip condition depending on what you're doing. Of course, we do have a number of cards that play with plus one counters. Things like Long Tusk Cub come to mind. Things like Walking Ballista come to mind. Things like the snake come to mind. All of these new merfolk that work with plus one counters. But it seems like the flip side is a really good way to break through board stalls. And if you've ever played things like Temur Energy Mirrors enough, people are always looking for the thing that breaks through the board stall. And essentially Elspething a guy is a pretty good way to do that. So I think this is pretty powerful, and I think that if you build your deck the right way, it's not a terrible thing to have to do. And at the end of the day, if all it's doing while it's out in play is making one attacker a little bit better, it's not like it's worthless. It's not just doing nothing. So, card intrigues me.
I think I'm coming around on this a little bit. I think someone mentioned this with like Bristling Hydra, and that got me a lot more excited because you can actually, activate if you have this thing flipped and you want to give your Hydra flying and plus X, then you actually have a way to protect it from getting spot removal in response. So that's pretty good. Ultimately, I guess we'll see if energy is still a deck, I guess. But like, seems like it fits right in, at least as like a one of kind of spicy card. Kind of like it.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. It's I think that the designs of these, again, these flip enchantments and the lands on the backsides, all are at least pretty unique, and I think are kind of fun. And sometimes they're just outright crazy, like the red white one is bonkers and almost impossible to understand how it works. Any other cards you want to mention before? Since we're going to Palooza next week.
I like the red Snapcaster. not even close to
that
power
is a very
nice
way of saying it.
Yeah, it's not really a Snapcaster, but it's probably the closest we're ever going to get again.
The Direfleet Daredevil.
Yeah, Direfleet Daredevil's 1 in a red for a 2/1 first strike human pirate. Then when it enters the battlefield, you exile target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard, and then you may cast that this turn, and you can spend any mana as though it's been a color. And then it gets exiled if you cast it. So you're kind of snapcastering from your opponent's graveyard. But yeah, I kind of like it. I mean, 2/1 first strike for 2 is already like pretty decent. And you get that upside. So ultimately, I guess we'll see if this ends up making the cut. I just think it's a really cool card.
Yeah, I think it's for the unique one too. I don't know if that one again makes the cut, but. I want to play it in Vintage Cube. I know that.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of cards in the set that's like after playing Vintage Cube, you're like, oh man, this card would be sweet.
I kind of like Warkite Marauder. I think it's kind of a weird one, and it's just a 2 mana, so 1 in a blue for a 2/1 with flying, and then when it attacks, target creature defending player controls loses all abilities and has power and toughness of 0/1 until end of turn. I don't know if there is actually a deck for this that could really take advantage of that, but I know that there's a lot of difficult to deal with permanents that exist that are creatures, maybe like Scarab God, that when they become 0/1s and lose all abilities, are really easy to kill. And that's pretty effective. So like I said, it's an interesting creature that does an interesting thing that is cheap and evasive. And if there's a place for it, then it could be good, but I don't know what it is. But I saw it and I kind of liked it, and it's a card to keep in the back of your head.
Yeah, it's sort of a spicy effect. It's kind of weird because you look at, I mean, like limited, but you look at all the random ways you can do like 1 damage to things too, and then you can make this, and you're like, interesting,
right? So I'm not saying that there's really anything there, but I know that there's probably been decks that are constructed that are like, this deck is so good, except it has 0 way to deal with Scarab God. But so if this card fits into one of those decks somehow, and you can make effective use of it, then maybe it's worth it.
Yeah, maybe.
That's a card that's kind of under the radar that I kind of like. So
they keep making 2/1 flyers for 2 better and better.
Right.
It used to be like can't block or can only block flying. And now then they made the pirate in Kaladesh, right? That like adds counters to things when it hits, so that one could actually block.
Yeah.
And now it's like this one actually has like a pretty sweet ability when it attacks, doesn't even have to connect. So Yeah, I don't know what's next in the evolution of the 2/1 flyer for 2.
Yeah, we'll just have to kind of wait and see.
I was going to throw in a bonus here. It's like not a card I think is going to be like super constructed playable or anything, but Riverwise Augur is a card that I really like. It's mostly just for my cube, but it's a 3 generic and a blue 2/2 merfolk that when it enters the battlefield, you brainstorm basically. So, thought that was cool.
Yeah, I think that's pretty
A
sweet.
little surprising too that they would print something like that, but maybe not.
I don't know. They also just printed like better Necrotol, so just
yeah.
ask Mr. Sullivan how he
Yeah,
feels about that.
you could if you haven't had a chance to, you should definitely take a look at Patrick Sullivan on game design. That was a sort of a segment they kind of did on the open during coverage, and they broke it out into its own video, so you can check it out. I think it's on their YouTube and on the coverage page actually. So if you haven't seen that, Patrick Sullivan, if you don't know, his day job is being a game designer, so he's well informed about the concepts and everything like that about game design. So he goes on a pretty good rant, and it's worth your time to listen. In all honesty, about the Ravenous Chupacabra and the many issues that man has with with Magic in Standard as it currently sits. So. So we did briefly mention that on January 15th there are going to be there's going to be a new banner restricted announcement.
Yeah.
And a lot of the buzz as far as the community and greater is concerned is that energy could actually be hit with some bans. We know Modern won't be affected because they've stated that they don't want to change anything before the Modern Pro Tour, so that you didn't have the weird issues occurring with people's testing and stuff like that. And to be perfectly honest, Modern really healthy right now, so like don't ever change anything with it, period, except for adding new sets. And then if you break something, then fix it.
Except for Tron, we can get rid of that, right?
Yeah, no, it's really running rampant. It's a scourge of the format. It really, when we take a look at the results from the Open in Santa Clara, we can see that it's actually everywhere and a huge problem. No, it's not. But what do you guys think? Do you think that do you think that WotC's going to pull the trigger on it?
I think so. I think they're going to have to.
Now,
it's sad because I think that I've been before I was like, yes, we need to ban these things, and I've been kind of low key on this, but I think that if they want Ixalan to matter as a block ever, they're going to have to do it.
So what do they need to ban?
It's probably a tune. It's either a tune or a Rogue Refiner.
Do you think that they need to ban multiple cards?
Possibly. If they want the deck to die but energy be viable in different ways, then yeah, I think they're going to have to do probably more than one card. So,
do you think it's possible they could ban Aether Hub?
That one I find it harder to do because I think they want that card in the format, and I think it's a lot worse without something like a tune. So, it's possible though. I mean, they could go for the trifecta and just go with the tune, Hub, and
Rogue Refiner.
So,
yeah.
I don't think it's Virtuoso though. That could merit it. But that's not really that card is very good in those decks, but it isn't the card that like when you look at what Rogue Refiner does in those decks, it is disgusting. It is amazing to me that people were like, no, we can cut on this card. You're like, no, that's not the one you cut. Like it is always up a card and potentially more than that because of the 2 energy. It is gross. And as a 3 power creature at that, it does so much. It really does.
So like, well, think about it like this. So like, what would you be okay with the energy mechanic in Standard? Like, are we okay with the like Grixis Thopters deck? Is that okay as an energy deck? Is it just these green ones that were like, we have Attune, Rogue Refiner, Bristling Hydra, Long Tusk Cub. Are these like the major offenders in your eyes?
It's the deck that gets to play like 4 colors, like gets to play 3 colors pretty solidly. It gets the splash of 4th at times. It does not get punished for it, even though it should. And it is just like the good stuff, that deck that it doesn't allow anything new to kind of come in and shine. Like even cards from Rivals, like it's a deck that has a purely parasitic mechanic that only the most powerful cards could even break into. That's why we see Glorybringer in them, because it's like a bonkers card. So like I think like that's the issue. It is the deck. If you don't want to play like a monocolored like mana base or a very slow deck like Approach or something like that, it's the only deck that you can play in like the mid game. Like it's the only mid range deck that's actually viable. When you have like a standard format that is slowly creeped into being more and more mid range, it feels like, or even late game with a lot of stuff that they print. Because like the only aggressive deck that we truly have, and obviously things could change with rivals and with what the banning, if they do happen, what that could change. But we really only have one good aggressive deck. Period. Like we have red, and that's about it.
Yeah,
and then we have like one good mid range deck, which is Teamer. Now there's different like variations, but they all have pretty much the same central core. Or even like you could even like be more general and say like Energy is just like the general core.
Yeah.
If you want to be like split hairs between Teamer and Sultai,
right.
which isn't even as popular anymore. And then you have like Esper / Blue White Approach, and that's realistically it. But most of the time it's just Teamer. I think if you take out Attune, you take out Aether Hub, and you take out Rogue Refiner. You take out those, then like that deck doesn't exist anymore. You don't have that that same core architecture to build off of anymore. And then you let things like Grixis, Thopters, and Improvise be a thing, and then like suddenly you're seeing a deck that's viable that uses a mechanic that was in Kaladesh that no one cares about being Improvise, and then you still have good cards in that deck that just become a little bit easier to deal with. So like Bristling Hydra. Bristling Hydra is still a pretty good card that could see play in another deck that is just easier to deal with now. Is like more of a fair card to deal with.
It's like less of a chance of it coming down and you already have 3 energy.
Or like 6 energy, like 6 energy once it resolve, yeah, or already having 3 energy, something like that. Like you make these threats that are currently feel like overwhelming in the Teamer deck a little bit more easier, and maybe that makes them more unplayable. But like maybe they shouldn't have been that like playable in the first place. Like Long Tusk Cub is another good example. Like Attune in a Long Tusk Cub is miserable when you have Shocks as being like your 1 mana removal in the format. So, like, just even taking that away feels like a little bit more approachable.
Let me throw this at you. So, a lot of people have speculated that if we see a ban to bring down the power level of Teamer Energy, that Remnant Red is just going to take over. That's going to be the new best deck. Do you think there's any chance, because we saw this with Reflector Mage, is kind of like they want to think about what the next big thing is going to be and kind of cut that off. Is there any chance that we see any ban out of the red deck?
I mean, anything's possible. Like, I wouldn't be necessarily opposed or surprised at that. The issue that I have with that, though, is it's a lot easier to be an aggro deck. Like, truthfully, like it's a lot easier to build a deck and have that in mind and be able to combat it. And it's so much harder to try and combat Teamer, in my opinion.
Okay, so you think basically if people don't have to worry about Teamer as a deck, they can devote more maybe deck building energy to like not energy.
Sure.
Maybe that wasn't the right
they
word.
They can build more of a focus into whatever they're doing to combat.
Right. To be like
whatever,
more slanted towards red or like have more sideboard cards against red because they don't have to worry about beating Teamer Energy.
Exactly.
Because that's probably going to be, half
I mean, yeah, that's going to be, enemy number one. Now, not to say that, Ramanop, I think that a lot of the problems with Standard stem from just an issue with, like, not having good enough removal for the creatures that are super annoying. So you have Hazoret, and Hazoret's, like, the annoying card in red. That is super hard to deal with. And you have Scarab God. Scarab God's just, like, the card in, any kind of blue-black X deck that is just super difficult to deal with. They just keep coming back. So I don't think, like, Rivals fixes the bad, like, removal problem for those creatures. It doesn't, but at the very least, like, you don't have to dedicate. You don't have to figure out how to build a deck that beats both Teamer and Ramanop.
It's true.
I think it was Craig Wesco that said like the perfect card for Standard right now would be Celestial Purge. It just hits like everything.
Yeah,
kills Hazoret, kills Scarab God, like Glorybringer.
I mean, like it's just you don't give colors equal access to ways to deal with stuff, and you don't build good enough mana bases within standard to allow people to branch into those colors that have good answers. Then you're going to have decks that just can't compete with certain strategies, and like sometimes that's okay, but it feels like Temur is so all encompassing that why do anything else? And this is an issue that they had for, it almost feels like 2 years within standard. Maybe that's a bit of a high number, but it feels like it's been forever since they've had a good standard. And it's a mana bases and removal problem. And it's because they, for some reason, think that, creating good mana bases makes things too homogenous, or having good removal invalidates creatures or something like that. But it's like, well, creatures are very good right now. Like we have some of the most powerful creatures that we've had in like a standard. It is really annoying. It really limits to what you can actually do in the format. So we'll see. I think it really sucks. I think it really sucks that they have to do this.
It's been a tough stretch.
Yeah,
it's like every time you think it's going to get better, it like does for a little bit, and it's like, oh wait, we're back here, and it kind of like it keeps coming back to energy, like Marvel was the thing, and you thought, okay, all right, Marvel's gone, it's gonna be fine now. No.
Like realistically speaking, like that energy was a pretty like. It is a pretty bad like design choice. Like the whole like scope of it, and like they just could not evaluate that mechanic correctly. It seems.
I think like even when it was first spoiled, like when we first heard about energy, it just didn't like sound right to me. Like, wait, so there's no way to interact with this?
Right.
Like it should set off some alarm bells. It's just like maybe
Infect didn't break a block without having an answer to it. I'm just saying, like it's not like it isn't super uncommon, but
sure.
Yeah,
but
it's more in line with their more recent design decisions.
You're playing with fire. You're playing with fire,
and in fact, like you attached Infect to a bunch of like pretty small creatures, and you have. You had really good removal.
That is true.
In that format.
That was the format of dismembers.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, then you have safety valves, but Energy had no safety valve.
No, I agree with that.
And I think like that's their issue, and it feels like a really bad, like, it feels like they forgot. Like they just forgot to be like, hey, we have a good mechanic, we'll let it be good for a while, and then we'll print safety valves. Like, they should have had some sort of safety valve in, like, Aether Revolt. And flavorfully speaking, they could have easily done that, because it's like, people leading a revolution against like the upper class. So it's like, cool, just have like a card that's literally like steal energy and drain all energy counters from target player. Draw a card. Like, oh, you did it! Congratulations, you figured it out.
I solved my puzzle.
But they didn't. And you know what? It's unfortunate. But I think like hopefully they've learned a lesson from doing this. But it feels like a lesson they should have already known, since they've had to like do this before. It seems like. But oh well, I'm not a game designer. What do I know?
All I can do is hope that now that they have this. I keep forgetting what the name of it is. Not play test group, but you know what I mean. Like the group of players that they have play design. By the time the sets come out that they have worked on, hopefully we are at, I guess, a much more balanced standard environment. So that's all I'm hoping for. But I guess we'll see what happens with the BNR list, and I guess see if standard can be saved in the short term here.
So if the bans happen, are you more interested in standard in general?
I mean, yeah, I am. But I mean, it's still pretty much an FNM format.
I can't be much more.
Yeah,
I can't be much more disinterested at this point. So I guess yes.
By default, yes. Yeah. I know I would be. I'm with Mike. We don't have anything really large standard wise coming up. The largest thing we probably have anytime soon, it'd be like a Starts the Games IQ
or a PPTQ.
Yeah, or a PPTQ. But it would just be an FNM format for me as well. But the bannings I feel like it would really open things up a little bit more. Like you still like they could surprise us and also ban something in red. I don't know what you would ban.
I don't think red needs a ban.
I haven't seen anybody talk about it, but I'm just saying like it's something that they have considered.
They have done.
In the past.
Yeah, no. I know there's precedent for it.
Cut it off before
it becomes the issue.
So
but I think that you allow some other mechanics and other like design choices to show up. I think that energy was kind of just a mistake, and they need to just admit it. And I think that
the play design team wrote an article literally saying it was.
The Torah wrote that.
They literally compared it to Affinity. So
right. So if you're playing,
I don't mean modern Affinity. I mean standard Band 9 cards Affinity.
Yeah. So I would expect to see some potential bannings for sure. I wouldn't be shocked. Is all we're gonna say. But we'll talk about it before the Palooza for sure. And before we head out of the community segment, I did want to congratulate our winners. Of course, we had some BCW's supplies giveaway. We got some deck lockers to give out. We actually did 2 giveaways. One was the Gleam.io event that a lot of people shared. We had over 100 entrants into the giveaway. And our winner is David Mast. So congratulations, David Mast. We will be reaching out to you shortly to ship you out a deck locker. And then we also had a Patreon exclusive giveaway. And this is something we didn't announce, but all of our Patreons that contributed at a $2...
You mean patrons?
Yeah, all our patrons that contribute to us at a $2 or higher level were entered in to a contest to also get one of these deck lockers. And our winner is Connor Guarino. And I probably butchered your last name, but we'll be getting in contact with you, Yuto, so get you that deck box. But thank you so much for everyone who entered and was interested and checked out our Facebook page and Twitter, and who went to look at our Patreon page. And again, there's going to be more of these sort of like surprise announcements and everything like that, or surprise giveaways and stuff. So we'll be sure to let you know about them when they do come up. And if you want to be entered to win some of those Patreon exclusive things, definitely feel free to look at contributing to us on a per show level. We certainly do appreciate it.
Do we have any events where you don't have to worry about any energy cards?
Yeah,
happening this weekend.
Yeah, we certainly do. Of course, it's going to be the Rivals of Ixalan pre-release, like we said at the top of the show. Comic Town, our lovely sponsor, is going to have you covered. There's going to be 5 events, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, 5 events.
5 events across midnight on Saturday through Sunday evening. And if you want to get more information about those events or pre-register even, check out Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook. Do a quick search for them. They'll pop up when you do it. And give them a quick look-see and see if any of those pre-releases fit your schedule. We hope to encourage you to go there. It's a great place. Their new store is huge for pre-releases, so it's definitely worth your time and money to check it out. So, competitive. We had a couple events happen over the weekend. First, we want to talk about GP Santa Clara. This was a team-constructed GP. This is the first time that we're seeing a team constructed GP that's unified constructed. At least for quite some time. I don't know if ever. I don't have that history in my head at this point in time, but certainly for some time.
They've never done a GP level like mixed format team event.
Gotcha.
It's always been like unified standard or unified modern.
Gotcha.
So
awesome. And this is I didn't watch any coverage as far as that goes. I was mainly watching the Columbus Open. Yes, watching because I did not attend. I was still very, very sick. I thought I could do it. I was very hopeful on Friday night, but alas, I had like a second round of symptoms and like just didn't want to deal with it, which I'm sure anyone who was at that event is probably okay with. So, but a trio of relatively unknowns won the tournament. William Ho, John Martin, and Jeremy Fry took it down. Were there any top teams? Were there the known teams in the top 4?
There were some notable players.
Yeah, so we have the team of Logan Nettles, Vedanta Wijaya, and Jonathan. Oh man, that guy's last name is a good last name. Engelskew. Engelskew. I'm gonna say. Joe Demestrio, Nathan Holiday, and Ricky Steer. I know of those names.
Yeah.
Nathan Holiday has a very large head of hair.
Writes for Star City.
Or
did.
Writes for
Channel Fireball.
Channel
I
Fireball.
said Star City, Channel Fireball. I knew that. My apologies.
So yeah, and then Isaac Sears, Gallon, Falakfars. Yeah, Gallon Falakfars, and Dan maybe is the other last team there on there.
I think at this rate, you probably would have preferred, one of the Asian GPs with the names.
They're everywhere, but hey, I'm glad that I can mumble my way through it.
I think I think the main thing to take away from this is that unlike some of the limited team GPs, the constructed ones are, I guess, more open to some of these like more unknown teams kind of taking it down or like doing well. Mm-hmm. Of course, Peach Garden Oath was there. We had a team with, what was it, Ben Stark, Eric Froelich, and PV, I think, were on a team. Mm-hmm. And, none of them made it to the top 4. So I also did not watch much coverage of this since I was playing Magic for most of the weekend. But
I'd also rather just watch Cedric and Sullivan, man. Like,
yeah,
I don't know what to tell you.
The coverage team, I tell you, that's where it's at. I do wonder why the consistency sort of changes as far as like the what people would think the cream of the crop rising to the top would be. Do you think it's just how the formats sort of shake out?
Well, I think just with constructed in general, your results might lean a little bit more on your matchups that you get versus like in limited, you can. I guess in limited, I think there's more teamwork involved because of the deck building aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And like, I think that's more skill intensive than just choosing whatever decks you're going to play. Mm-hmm. So that's basically what it boils down to. So I do think that teams of pros and especially teams that have teamed together in the past have a much much better advantage in a limited event than they do in constructed, where it's like you could have 3 good decks, but if you get the wrong matchups, it might not matter. Mm-hmm. So,
fair enough. Oh, Jinx. You owe me a Coke?
I don't have any.
Dang it.
I can't talk rest time. Sorry.
Mike's on mute. Turn his mic off.
Mike might be playing Magic.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. I think it's cool that we're seeing these tournaments. I know that there was some concern about there being like too many team tournaments like this between like GPs and Star City, but I think they're worth it. I think they're cool. A shout out to the team Card Hoarder, Ellie Cassis and the 2 Kiefer.
The 2 younger Kiefers.
The 2 younger Kiefers. They qualified for Magic 25 Pro Tour for the PTQ the next day, which is pretty awesome. We'll have to write to them and get some advice on how to win one of those, so we can also qualify for said tournament.
Is it Quinn? Is he the youngest one?
I can't remember.
I think, but anyway, the youngest one is 12.
That's crazy.
And yeah, I don't think I'm going to be playing in any more Pro Tours, so that's pretty cool.
Not with that attitude.
Yeah, geez.
Well, yeah, maybe not, but I also don't have the kind of time to dedicate any longer to trying to be on that
We at
grind.
least have to try for, Magic 25. That's the cool one.
That is the cool one.
That might be doable.
All right. Anything else from GP Santa Clara? Obviously, we know that there were any side events that granted you buys, so that was something that they did not do.
Did we hear anything about the Pauper?
I heard it was popular. That's no joke. I heard that people
Paupular.
I did hear that the events did fire, and they had a fair amount of people. I think it was over 100 people playing Pauper Side events. So
Nice.
That's cool.
I mean, that's a good enough of
Probably
people.
more than Frontier
Any
ever got.
Frontier event ever fired with. Correct. That is completely accurate.
And that's only the first one. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think I could definitely see it picking up steam, and that's pretty cool.
I agree. And maybe it might not be something that I ever, do,
Yeah.
but it is something that I think is cool to see be a thing. In all honesty, so
Hey, I'm in favor of like any format that people want to play. If it gets a lot of people to play it, I'm happy. I'm just happy for Magic as a whole, even if that's not my thing. It's kind
Right.
of sad to me when you have events that just like aren't firing, regardless of whatever it is.
right.
Like if you go to like a local store and it's like, oh well, we can't fire this draft because we only got 6 people.
Right.
Like that stinks because then nobody gets to play. So
All right. Moving on to the Columbus Open. It was, of course, in our backyard. And we had a couple people attend, but I was not in attendance, sadly.
Yeah, it was really sad to sit in the players meeting and they started
Just hear my
calling for
name.
your name, and it's like, oh man, where is he?
I know. Trust me. I wanted to be there. Mentally, I wanted to be there. Physically, I did not want to be anywhere but my bed. So,
That's understandable.
but it had a total of 959 healthy players there at the tournament place.
I should have put an asterisk on there for the 959 because I don't think there were actually 959 players in the tournament, which we can. I think Mike can probably tell the story better than I can, but we'll get to that.
Oh, is this the Ryan McCabish story? So, there might have been an instance where a player was not recorded as not being in the players' meeting and was
And then got the feature match in
and then
round
got
one.
the backup feature match in round one. We know who got the feature match in round one, the real feature match in
Yeah,
round one.
it's true.
He might be in attendance currently.
It's true.
So that's probably the best place to start. Of course, is starting with your guys' stories, and we'll start with Mike because he's directly to my left, and that's how I'm determining things. But it was awesome to see that the open was on, and then get a message because I was up at a point in time. And I saw that Mike was in the feature match, so I got to watch Mike play against Kyle Bogomies playing Bird, and it was a match to watch. I will tell you that much, and I'll let you. That's what I'll pass it off to you, sir.
Real quick, Mike, do you have like a contract in place that's like whenever there's a Columbus Open, you always get the round one
I
feature
don't know.
match?
That's been a couple times now, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm not upset about it. Just what it
You
is.
tend to win them, I think, too.
I've so far have won all of my feature matches I've had in Columbus. So bring it to me. So I don't know. I guess I'll talk a little bit about the deck. I did play, as I talked about last week, I played Jeskai Geist. I got a pair of Kyle Bogomies round one. He was playing Burn, which I think is a good matchup for me in general, but I didn't exactly have great draws in any of those games. Game one where I mulled a 5 is the only game where I saw a Lightning Helix. And I played really, really bad. I was be honest. I played pathetically bad game two. I may have played the wrong land twice. So it's a good way to win games of Magic.
I'm pretty sure.
But he was definitely, I think, really, really struggling with some of his lines.
He was a little overzealous with his Eidolons.
Yeah.
From what I understand, though, that's kind of all that he drew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think I want to say, from what I understand, maybe I was wrong, but from what I understand, in game 3, he may have had 3 or so in hand, something like that. So I can't really blame him for that. Eidolon isn't exactly very good. It can be. I don't want to say it's very good. It is good, obviously. It was probably a good choice this weekend, but against me, it can be certainly awkward if I can stay ahead. So I don't know. It was an interesting match. If you go back and watch game 2, I have a Logic Knot in hand, and I played a non-fetch land to keep Negate up, which was, I realized as soon as he's fetched, I was like, oh, he's just going to play Eidolon here, and that was really, really poor of me. Now, granted, I did hit the Geist because of that, so there is there is a flip side to that. Game 2, he kept a one-lander, and you saw Spellcaller really shine, but I will say he got prompted by the judge to make a decision 5 or 6 different times, and that judge there is not really a floor judge because he's just there for that. And I probably should have called a judge, but we weren't like really pressed for time. You may have thought that because our match was still going on well after time had stopped, but we didn't get to start until after 10:30. So
that's almost that shouldn't actually factor into it. Like if you're in a situation.
Oh no,
like,
you're absolutely right. No, I was just
yeah.
saying like if it felt like we were going a long time, we actually still had a bunch of time on the clock. But
Yeah.
no, it was just one of those like the pace of the game didn't feel bad, but I definitely felt like, especially in game 3, like I didn't feel like I was actually in danger at all in game 3, and it probably looks like I was. But based on the way he was playing, I knew that all of his decisions mattered a lot more than mine. And I knew what my line was to win. So that's what I like about the Jeskai deck and the math you could do with it is that I'm very comfortable with knowing, like, this is what I have to do to win. Like, I knew what my attack was, that last attack with the Colonnade very quickly, and, like, knew, like, what the way to put him on, on the back burner was. I knew that by putting him to 1, he could never get a white source untapped that turn, that he could kill me with Boros Charm. Like, now granted, I played the burn deck a fair amount too, and I could tell that he hadn't. So that may also be part of it. So, but it was a fun way to start the day, and probably the highlight of my day because then I failed at day 2. So I don't know. I felt my deck was a good choice, but I had some awkward matchups. I lost to Infect, which I think is a good matchup, but I lost to Infect because I mulled I mulled a 4 game 1 against her, and then game 3 she killed me on her turn 3 on the play. Like she was like it was very bad. I lost to Elliot Mork, friend of the show, who top 32'd. So at least my death did not go in vain. Congratulations, bud.
Good job, Elliot.
But that was all. We played Death Shadow. We played that match a bunch of testing. It was a really good matchup for me, and did not matter. And then I lost to Dredge, which is not a great matchup. But in game 3 against Dredge, I never drew a 4th land where Cryptic was lethal multiple times. So it was kind of frustrating. But I had a lot of fun playing the deck. I played against a lot of cool decks. I got a GRV for playing spells my opponent's turn after they cast a Dragonlord Dromoka.
Yep, good job.
So like that was something I hadn't seen in a while.
Oh,
so cool, Dromoka.
that's fun.
Dave, how was your time?
Well, the Open, I also failed to day 2, so it wasn't great. I played the Blue-Red Through the Breach deck. The only spice that I played, I had 4 Young Pyromancers in the sideboard. So a lot of people play the what is it? The Platinum Empyrean Madcap Experiment package. And I didn't really like that because I thought most of these Breach decks have that, and I think people kind of knew to expect that, so I don't think it was really going to catch anybody off guard. Mm-hmm. So I decided Pyromancers were a good way to kind of... There were certain matchups where, like against Grixis Shadow, I would board out actually all my Through the Breaches and Emrakul's, and then just bring in like counter spells and Pyromancers, and just play like as like a mid range like blue red deck.
Yeah.
Which and that worked to good effect for me. And then other matchups where like I played against Abzan, and I had both Pyromancers and the combo pieces in as well, so I could fight on kind of 2 different axes on that way. But I was kind of immediately punished because I played against Burn round 1, and that's like one of the matchups where you want the Platinum Empyrean. So managed to keep it close, and like I went to a game 3, and I definitely got deflecting palmed after I threw the Breach to Emrakul. So that was a little brutal.
That's rough.
Yeah. I was pretty close to dead anyway, so it wasn't like a total blowout, but it was kind of gross. Like I kind of didn't really have the ability to play around it at all because I was going to be dead anyway. So yeah, that's how it goes, I guess.
Yeah, I watched a bunch of your matches, and like it did seem like the matches where you had to really dig for something were kind of awful. Like they felt awful to watch. They must have been awful to play.
Yeah. The deck was definitely a little frustrating, for sure, and so I lost round 1, beat 2 Grixis Shadows back to back, won the next 2 matches after that. So I was kind of getting back into it. It was 4-1, like feeling pretty good. My 4th win was I ripped an Emrakul on the last possible turn. My opponent exactly 15 to win with the combo, so that was pretty sweet. That was a really fun match. He was playing the green-red land destruction deck. Mm-hmm. And then I dropped my next 2 to played against a Naya Saheeli, I guess I would call it. Where it was kind of just like a green creature deck with Saheeli Rai, Feldar combo. That was pretty tough match. Like I felt like I probably had a good chance to win, and game 2 I kind of felt like it really slipped away from me because I kept like a hand with like 3 lands, and I just never saw a land for the rest of the game. I'm sitting there with like Anger of the Gods in hand with like only 1 red source, and I was like, yeah, this could have gone different. Yeah. And then I got just absolutely killed by the green-white Value Town deck, where I just felt like my deck just didn't do anything at all. So, I mean, overall, my takeaway was that the Blue-Red Through the Breach deck has some powerful draws that can do some things that really put opponents in a tough spot. But there were a lot of games as well where my opening hand had like 2 Through the Breaches and no Emrakuls or something. Or like the other way around, where like if you draw an Emrakul ever and you don't have the Through the Breach and it's just a blank card. Even hands where like you have Through the Breach and Emrakul in hand, like you still need to get to turn 5, assuming you hit all your land drops, and have them be low enough to where it kills them. And, hopefully they don't have something that can interact with that. So it's kind of a lot to ask. And I don't know how I feel with the deck going forward. Like I kind of like in the past, I thought that this version was kind of better than the Kiki-Jiki deck, like Blue Moon deck. And now I'm kind of like rethinking that, because at least if you get the Kiki-Jiki combo off, they're dead, like guaranteed. And there were multiple games with this deck where my opponent actually had was above 15 and had enough permanence to where they could leave a creature in play, and then I would be dead on the crackback. So, yeah, it was. I had fun, but the deck was a little frustrating at times.
Well, I'm glad that you had a learning experience.
It was a learning experience for sure. It was kind of weird because in testing the deck was doing really well, and it just. I don't know if it was just bad draws or what, but I mean, I did play all 9 rounds, even though I was out after round, 7 or whatever. But
right,
I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be playing it again.
fair enough. I mean, you definitely have a lot of options as far as decks are concerned. So, I wouldn't expect you to. At least not play that exact version. You talked a little bit about the Kiki version, so maybe if you wanted to try it again, maybe you'd look into sliding into that.
Yeah, I did switch it up for the Modern Classic, which we can talk about that in a little bit once we get to that tournament.
Yeah. So let's go to the top 8 of the Modern Open. We had Benjamin Nikolic taking it down, defeating Kevin Jones in the Jeskai Control 74 card mirror in the finals. So if you are out there trying to say that Modern is all combo decks and non-interactive and you blah blah blah, okay, cool, 2 control decks were in the finals.
This isn't like Jeskai with Geist.
It's not
this
Geist.
Is like Sphinx's Revelation Jeskai.
Yeah,
like Sean McLaren style.
So I don't want to hear it.
And I just want to say, if you didn't see the finals matchup, and that might sound boring to you, like Control Mirror, but for those that don't know, Benjamin Nikolic, this is basically the only deck that he plays. He's been playing this deck for literally years. Through the good times and the bad, I guess, with Jeskai, he's seen it all. And he really knows what he's doing. And, if you watch that finals matchup, it was just ridiculous. He just mopped the floor with Kevin Jones. And there were multiple times, kind of in both games, where I was like, there's no way he's going to be able to come back from this. And he just, clawed his way back into the game. And, before you know it, Kevin Jones just had no cards in his hand, and it was just how did this happen? So it was really great. If you enjoy Control Mirrors, definitely go and watch that if you haven't seen it. Even if you don't, I think it's worth. I think there are lessons to be learned in watching that match. So
I really love these decks. I enjoyed playing Geist, but it would not take me much to convince me to do this. Playing things like Secure the Waste, Elspeth's in the board,
yeah, this is definitely like the more pure control than the tempo version that you played.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
This one isn't killing anybody like before like turn 10 at least.
And I will say, like, from my perspective, I felt like Geist allowed me to win. Like, just go looking back on my weekend, Geist allowed me to win a number of games that I just would not have been able to otherwise. That being said, if I had more control elements and more counter magic, then maybe maybe the situation is different anyway. So I could see the merit to both. But Search for Azcanta looks sweet in this list. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I think it looks pretty cool.
For sure. I think that these kind of control decks have been good for a while, and that's why you've kind of seen, big mana decks be good. Well, your Tron be good, since they typically go over the top of this, and it's something to definitely take note of going forward. You will look in this top 8, and you'll see that the only Tron deck in the top 32 is an Eldrazi Tron deck, and that is it. So people are kind of, I guess, figuring it out, how to get around Tron in some degree, and still have success with these big control decks. And potentially that maybe people were too afraid of going into the big tournament with the deck that might have a target on its back from the last GPs in Tron. So maybe it just wasn't heavily played. I wasn't there. I don't know. Or maybe people are figuring out ways to beat it. But the format is open. It's diverse. I mean, we have a Skred red deck here in the top 8. Like we have a green white company value deck. We have Storm. It's Caleb Shear. Like, let's be real.
I thought that's what Kyle Boggums was playing. He would turn one was Snow Covered Mountain, and I was like, all right, but they bolted me.
He juked you with the snow covered land.
Yeah.
For a second.
For a second, they bolted me, but I was just like, I'm better fetch for an island, I guess.
Yeah.
So he got me.
And Dylan Donegan's playing Grixis Death Shadow, unsurprisingly. And we have Jonathan Rossum in the top 8. Not an unfamiliar name, playing Humans, not surprisingly. Throughout the coverage, I think on day 1, there was a Humans mirror between him and his one of his teammates.
It was Kazu Negri.
No, it was Syed.
Zan Syed.
Zan Syed.
Yeah.
That's a really good mirror match to watch those kind of the decks go at it, because they again had a pretty much 75 card mirror, and there's most certainly a lot of play to those Humans lists for sure. I feel like it's not often that we really see like a new archetype break out and it just like stick around the way the Humans has, and that's pretty cool in all honesty.
I do want to point out that like the I guess most current versions of Humans play Phantasmal Image in the deck.
They're no longer playing the Mare. They've booted them out.
I think it was pretty clear that the Mare was like the weak link in that deck. Like,
so they booted them out and put in an imposter.
The Kitesail freebooted him.
The Kitesail freebooted him.
Yeah.
And now they put the person that can an illusion that could be like anything.
Yeah,
Can even be a boat.
Just from like games that I was watching, not even necessarily that were on camera, just like from walking around and like just watching matches of Magic. Like Phantasmal Images like can do some like kind of dumb things.
Oh yeah, it's real gross. It was being all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, there was one game. What was it? I believe it was in round 15. Rossum actually was on camera. And his opponent played a turn 3 Hornet Queen. And he didn't pull the trigger, but he did have the opportunity to just Phantasmal Image a Hornet Queen. That would have been sweet.
Yeah.
Didn't end up doing it.
Okay.
But yeah. Could have been a thing.
It's just like it's just really gross. Like that card being flashed in is brutal sometimes. Like I know in that mirror match, there's definitely a time where I think Zan plays Reflector Mage and then bounces, one of Rossum's creatures, and then Rossum's able to like flash in Phantasmal Mage, copy the Reflector Mage and like just get value, and it's crazy. That card's real good. It's always been good. When it was a standard, whether you're playing Merfolk, like card's great.
I've copied many Titans in my day.
Yeah,
with Phantasmal Image in standard.
Yeah, it's a great cube. Like it's just a good card.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think this hobby is pretty diverse. All in all, and in general, when we take a look at like the metagame, it's your kind of what you would expect. We have Grixis Shadow still being the most popular deck,
Yeah.
quote unquote, best deck in Modern, followed by Jeskai Control, and Affinity. Being like the top 3 decks being represented, and the most we have of any one deck is 10, and then it goes 8, 7, and then Burn following after that at 6. So, and everything else is a lot of 2s and 1-ofs. Some going a little bit over that, but definitely a lot of decks showing up and having success within the meta.
Yeah, I was not surprised to see. I guess after playing in the tournament and kind of walking around and seeing like what was doing well, there would seem to be a lot of Grixis Shadow, and so that's not really surprising to see it be the top dog. I think even though it didn't win the tournament, it very in a lot of ways it felt like the deck of the tournament. And like I watched a lot of watched Elliot play a lot, and he was playing the deck, and there's just a lot of games where he played it really well, and there was just like nothing that his opponent could do. It was just like, yep, this is how it's going to go, and I'm going to win.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. It almost made me want to play the deck again, but I'm not going to. Like, almost for a second, I was like, ooh, no, I can't do it. Maybe I should have, though. I don't know. I probably would have had a better result.
I think that it's definitely a very good deck in Standard, and I think it plays a role most certainly, and but it has its enemies. It can be defeated, and it's definitely not like an unbeatable sort of archetype or anything like that. But it's definitely a good deck.
I think I'm really interested to see. Of course, we have a Modern Pro Tour coming up here in a couple weeks, and I think like amongst pros, I think most pros would say like, yeah, like Modern's diverse, but Grixis Shadow is probably the best deck, and it's probably the deck that like most pros would gravitate towards, because it just has a lot of like cheap interaction and stuff. I really want to see like how much of a percentage Grixis Shadow is at the Pro Tour, because I think that's going to be kind of the default deck for a lot of pros if they can't figure out something that they like.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? So.
I mean, the nice thing though is that you do have this Jeskai Control list, showing up and being popular, and I think that is also a deck that a lot of pros might gravitate towards as well.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, I think there's a subset of pros that they
want to play the Cryptic Command deck.
Control, yeah.
I mean, Cryptic Command is very enjoyable Magic card to cast. Can confirm.
Yeah, I cast a lot of those as well this weekend.
I don't know what this card is.
It requires
I'm
It's kind of like that one from Unstable.
I'm very aware of that card is. I don't cast it. I'm just on the receiving end of it, and I don't like it. So, but I think that I would tend to agree with Dave. Like most certainly, a lot of the pros are going to be like, I just want to play the quote unquote best deck within the format. But I would be surprised to see a little bit more diversity than what we typically expect. There are definitely a lot of decks that you can play in the format, and a lot of viability. So I think there's definitely going to be a lot of Grixis deck Shadow at the Modern Pro Tour, but I think there'll be a fair amount of other things too.
I think there's going to be a ton of Storm too.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we at least know one player that's going to be playing Storm at the Pro Tour. Just one for like 100% sure. Yeah, that guy.
I'm pretty sure Caleb Shearer is qualified as well.
2.
So he's definitely playing that.
Yeah. No, he is. He is definitely. He's definitely qualified. So 2 for sure.
Yeah.
But that's fine. I think that is another deck that is okay. I think it's okay in the format.
If we're talking about like I was surprised to only see 2 Storm decks in day 2 at the Open.
Yeah,
I still think it's the best deck in the format.
I think
that was just kind of surprising.
I think there's this unspoken gentleman's agreement that people are like, listen, don't play Storm. I know that we're all safe until the Pro Tour, but keep it on the DL and don't ruin this for everyone.
Well, I don't think that's what it was.
You don't think that's what it is? All right.
That's it.
I do
I don't
think there
know.
was. I do think there was a lot of burn in the tournament. It's not going to
Yes.
show up in this chart here for day 2 because a lot of them probably didn't make day 2. But there was a lot of burn.
It's
like
it was the
looking
fourth.
around.
It was the fourth most. There were 6 that converted. So
Yeah, there was 6 that converted, but I think overall in the tournament there
There
were much
was-
more than that, and like that is a tough matchup for Storm. And I think like the Storm, the people that did decide to bring Storm maybe couldn't get through a lot of the burn, and
Yeah.
I know that was the case for Brian DeMars. He said he played against like 6 burn decks or something like that.
yeah, that's hard. I'm not really
So-
sure how you necessarily combat that. In all honesty,
Maybe that was on the whole weekend for him.
Sure,
I don't
sure.
know. But still, that's still a lot of
Yeah.
burn. I played against burn 3 times,
yeah,
twice. Yeah.
it's a popular deck. It's overall not that expensive, and I mean, out of the quote unquote cheap decks, it's probably the most powerful one that isn't intimidating. I think
Yeah,
like
it's-
Storm is inexpensive, but I think a lot of people are intimidated by it.
I would. That's probably a fair feeling about it. It's not an easy deck to. I wouldn't even say master. I don't think it's an easy deck to wrap your mind around. If that's just,
Yeah.
especially for people who haven't played the kind of Magic that Storm wants you to play. Like,
Sure.
if you are a standard player, you have been for the last few years, you've just not seen anything like this. To be
Right.
quite honest, so
Right. I think it's intimidating. I don't necessarily think like it's not something that you can just like not jump into. Like
Yeah.
you it will take you time to get used to it, but
Put it this way. The average player can pick up a burn deck and do reasonably well. I think the average player cannot just pick up a storm deck and expect to do reasonably well.
I think that overall, like that's probably true. But I think Burn has definitely a lot of like difficult, difficult lines. But I think that I don't know. I'd like to see like how many free wins each of the decks like provide overall. You know?
Yeah, and I'm not saying that like Burn is like super easy to play. It's just much more straightforward.
Sure.
You don't have to like with Storm. There's a lot of thinking about like what you need to play around from your opponent. In Burn, there are like not that many cards that you need to play around.
Sure.
So
And I think Storm changes drastically between like games 1 and games 2.
right, yeah, it's almost like transformational.
Yeah.
And how it works, yeah, for sure.
And Burn is not that transformational. I think Burn sideboarding is still fairly difficult, but it's not as transformational as you would see from like a Storm deck. I think they're actually fairly similar decks, in all honesty, as far as that goes. I think Storm is fairly like you're pretty much only doing one thing. It's just abstract, if that makes any sense.
no, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's just I think it's hard for. It just I don't know that sequencing, that patternization can just be
Sure.
You can teach it to yourself, but it's tough.
Yeah, it is fun to goldfish. I will give a lot of people that when you have 0 opponents and there's no interaction, it's great. Your gift piles are always perfect, and you always know what to pick. You always get what you want. It's weird. No, but I think they're both pretty fun decks. And that no one should. I think like if you're in an interested deck, that you shouldn't be intimidated by its perceived complexity. I think that everything is fairly accessible and learnable within Modern, and worth taking a look at.
Well, I would have played Storm, but I was intimidated. I mean, I'm just being honest. The reason why I did not play Storm,
I don't blame you. Like you paid
Yeah.
$50 for a tournament. Like
yeah, I have played it a little bit. I've dabbled in Storm.
Yeah.
But I did not feel comfortable taking it to an open.
Sure.
I didn't feel like if I'm playing against, if I'm playing against like a good player, I would not feel like
that you could outplay them.
I could outplay them. Right?
Sure.
And that just comes with repetition. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with it, and that is the deck I plan on playing going forward. So hopefully I will learn more and kind of figure out the common lines of play and sideboarding strategies and all that stuff. And, maybe when the next open that rolls around, I'll give Storm a go.
I think it's pretty cool. Anything else from the open that we want to talk about modern wise?
We talking about this mono green devotion deck.
Yeah, the mono G's. I know that
the mono G's made a comeback.
I know BCW's TBCW's own Brendan DeCanio played a devotion deck that he did not day two, not have good success with. But we do see this list in 16th place.
Yeah, it was
played by Anthony S.
We'll say Anthony Skrbzak.
Sure. You did a better job than I ever would have in my life. I cannot would not be able to pronounce that name.
Yeah, he lost playing for top 8 against Jonathan Rossum. But yeah, pretty cool deck. Now this is a deck that has, I guess typically you see Arbor Elf in these lists because it does feature 4 Utopia Sprawls. So obviously the interaction between Arbor Elf and Utopia Sprawl.
Oh, you know what? I know that this is actually a typo on Star City Games' part. He does have Arbor Elf.
Okay.
Arbor Colossus is not the card that he played in his deck.
He wasn't running the 4 Arbor Colossus.
He was not running the 4.
You know what?
A lot of G's in that.
That's kind of tricky, yeah, because there's a lot of G's.
A lot of G's in that card.
Man, that's aggressive.
That's not the one that he was running.
Really wants to kill flyers.
It was Arbor Elf for sure.
Okay, that makes sense.
I did some research on this.
All right. So the 4 Arbor Colossus is actually Arbor Elf. That makes sense. But yeah, the point remains, Utopia Sprawl is pretty powerful, like 1 mana ramp card. And with the Arbor Elf, it does give you a way to, I believe you can hit, how much mana is it? Hit 4 mana on turn 2, right?
Yeah, 4 mana turn 2.
So you could turn 1 Arbor Elf, turn 2, use your Utopia Sprawl, tap for 2, untap 4 mana. So yeah, you could do
get the Utopia Sprawl into play for free.
So you go turn 1 Forest Elf.
Yes.
Turn 2 Forest.
Oh, I'm forgetting
Utopia Sprawl on the other one.
That's what I'm getting. Yeah. Land drop. No, yeah, you're right.
And then you could play something like a Garruk Wildspeaker, untap, do something else.
Card's good in Vintage Cube. Must be good here.
Yeah.
Again,
it's my only
Vintage
metric.
Cube with the lessons.
It's literally my only metric. I don't know anymore.
This deck also features just a ton of one-ofs and 4 Summoners Pact. So you have Scavenging Ooze, Eternal Witness, Chameleon Colossus main deck.
Acidic Slime.
Acidic Slime, Morgan's favorite. Morgan's Bay. Yeah, Rorikthar.
Tell me how Storm beats a Rorikthar in play.
It laughs.
You don't game 1, that's for sure.
Yeah,
you beat a game 2.
You wipe away.
Yeah, you can bounce it. Yeah,
you gotta hope you can take 6 safely when you do that.
Yeah.
Well, this deck, I mean, it's not
you brave
super pressuring you unless it gets some crazy Burning Tree Emissary draw, which this also has 4F.
Yeah.
Though it's not really trying to beat down. It's mostly just this is a free creature that you can also activate your.
It also has 2 Gs.
Yeah.
So you can go
2 Rs.
And 2 Rs. Yeah. Just in case you want to activate that Nykthos, get some red.
I mean, you might need it to play the Rorikthar.
Turn 2, Utopia Sprawl on your land, untap it. Then Burning Tree Emissary, play a couple of those, play your Nykthos, and then what?
Like Cradle Hoof or something.
Yeah, everything.
Probably can't do that. I'm trying to think card wise. That's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if you were on the draw, you could do that turn 2. Yes. All right, cool, got him. Yep. And I don't think that's even lethal because all your Burning Tree Emissaries have something like this.
Well, you could even do something like Summoner's Pact Primeval Titan or something like that.
That is true. That is true.
The deck can be very explosive, and it is something that has been. It's not an entirely new deck, but it is something that's been around. It is somewhat inconsistent, though. I haven't seen a version with 4 Summoners Pact in it, so maybe that helps to make it a more consistent strategy.
Maybe.
I also think the fact that maybe I forgot this, but I don't remember Mono Green Devotion boarding Blood Moon often in the past. So that's some spicy tech. When your opponent's like Mono Green Devotion, you're like, oh okay, and then here comes the Blood Moon.
Yeah. I mean, it's not hard to get the red. I mean, you can do it off the Burning Tree. You have Birds of Paradise. You have Utopia Sprawl.
You have your fetches.
You have a couple stomping grounds. Yep. So you have ways to get there. But yeah, really cool take on this list. And it'd be interesting to see if this is something that picks up. Maybe is this like the new big mana? It's a different style of big mana than what we're used to with Tron or Scapeshift. So, but yeah, Nykthos can do some pretty disgusting things.
Yes. And I wanted to I want to take a look at DeCandio's list here real quick. I want to see what his looked like comparatively speaking, because he had a deck check. So if you want to see how a not day 2 list looks, so if you look at DeCandio's list, he definitely doesn't have all the one-ofs. You're not seeing like the Summoner's Paxters or anything like that. He's playing like Wistful Selkie. This looks like more of an older list, and the one that actually day 2s in places does look like a bit of an evolution. So I kind of like the list that we see in the top 16 a little bit more. I don't know if it has the same ability to do things like with Primal Command or maybe more consistency with like the looping that they can do with Primal Command. So maybe that could be the a little bit of a difference between the play styles of this particular list. But
I mean, like the list of top 16 is just like, I'm just gonna kill you with Crater Hoof.
Yeah,
like DeCandio's version.
There ain't no problem with that.
Yeah, DeCandio's version can like loop primal commands and like that's cool, or like it can Genesis Wave for like a bunch and get a bunch of things in play. The one that top 16 is just like, yeah, I'm just gonna search for Crater Hoof and I'm gonna cast that, and then you're dead. It's like we're done here. So I think I would prefer to play the list with the one-ofs. I mean, it seems like you have a lot of haymakers, like even something like main deck Chameleon Colossus, like against Death Shadow game 1.
Yeah, that's great.
Like, oh, that's a free win. Roark Thar against Storm. Oh, that's a free win. Like that adds up over a long tournament in Modern. Like having ways to just kind of knock out your opponent with cards that they're not expecting in game 1. Like that goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Anything else before we move on?
I was looking at the list. I don't think so.
Shout out to Riley Curran, who was in contention for a lot of the tournament. He fell off near the end there. Still finished top 32, I believe, with his 19th. He's playing his band company list.
Yeah,
that he's been playing forever. So.
His Rogue Modern Brew.
Yeah, he had some camera matches. So I haven't gone back and watched, but. Yeah, he's won an open.
He's the one in open. Yeah,
he's done one of those things.
Yeah.
But let's move on then. We'll go ahead and take a look at the Modern Classic. Congrats to Casey Welch. I know that he is a Columbus, Ohio native, if I'm not mistaken. Definitely I have played against him at Comic Town for taking down the Open with Affinity. So hats off to you.
Classic.
The Classic, yeah. Why did I say Open? Classic. Defeating Green-Red Tron there in the finals.
Doing God's work.
Played by Enlise Faustino. Yeah. But I was surprised to see Green-Red Tron, and this is like just old school Green-Red Tron list, playing Pyroclasms and everything.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's just like Blast from the Past. And I was like, oh, okay. We also see Blue Moon and Burn, piloted by Ryan McCamish, so hats off to him, showing up in 4th place. He ended up showing up for the Classic, it looks like, and not necessarily the Open. But yeah. And we the only repeat I think we have is another like Affinity list, but then we have Blue White Control, piloted by Walter Hangley.
Yes.
Hangley, yep.
Who I know also plays at Comic Town, if I'm not mistaken.
He does, and he recently won a Modern IQ with this deck as well. So
I know that you were talking about his sweet burn tech here in the here in the sideboard, the Pulse of the Fields.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that card.
You gain 4 life. Then, if an opponent has more life than you, return Pulse of the Fields to its owner's hand.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that one's pretty backbreaking.
Against Burn.
Yeah. And Burn is a tough matchup for this deck, so I do like that a lot. He was we were, checked in, during the tournament and just to see how he was doing. He kept, he started off really strong. He was like 5-0 or 6-0, and I think he was the 1 seed going in, so he might have just went undefeated all the way up until he was able to draw in.
I mean, and realistically, if we're kind of looking at it, and there was a lot of, Burn that didn't necessarily make day 2, but was in the Open, then naturally they probably tried their hand at the Classic to see what was what. So maybe that's just kind of what we saw, and he had a lot of good matchups.
I don't know that he actually played against Burn.
Sure.
And I still probably wouldn't want to play against it. But
I guess you're right.
I do think that, the Pulse of the Fields is a card that can actually turn that match, I think. Now, you still have to draw it. It's still only one of. But it is.
When you do, it's very strong.
We'll just say it is an impactful sideboard card.
So you see that Emma Handy put down the infect creatures and decided to play Jeskai Control.
Yeah, kudos to her for playing totally different strategies, just like doing well in this tournament.
Yeah.
And again, it's the control version, not the tempo like Spell Queller version.
Correct, but she was more aggressive. She's like, "No, I don't want that Nahiri. Give me a Johnny Vengeant. I'm here to avenge."
See, that's funny because Nikolic was playing a Johnny Vengeant for the longest time. I mean, he recently changed over to the Nahiri.
Interesting.
So this is almost like the old, again with like the green red Tron. This was just a modern tournament from like 6 months ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, but but yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is like the start of something where it's like the new like default Jeskai is going to be kind of this like bigger, kind of slower, more controlling version, or if people are still going to want to play the like main deck Geists and Spell College and stuff like that. I think that'll be interesting to see
for sure
how that shapes up going forward. Because right now, I mean, if we're just going off of the results, I mean, it would appear that the bigger version is better right now, but who knows?
So, I want to give a big shout out to David Green.
I'll also give him a shout out. He crushed me in round 1.
He crushed Dave, so kudos to you. But he played a green red aggro list that, wow. So Aether Vial is a really good Magic card, and it turns out you could just take a binder full of cards, pair that with Aether Vial, and then you have a deck. No, just kidding. This deck is kind of like is wacky. It's off the wall. It's got a whole bunch of stuff going on, including Combat Celebrant, the full one that could.
So let me tell you the story about round 1.
Let me tell you the story about how my life got flipped, turned upside down.
Yeah,
take a minute, just sit right there. And tell you how I became the king of a town called
Columbus, Ohio.
But by the way, I played Blue Red Delver in this tournament. I'm not going to get into the details. Just it is what it is.
That's what I played. All right.
I can't help myself. I don't know what to tell you.
Don't judge me.
Yeah.
Only Delver can judge me.
We're just going to leave it at that and move on. So round 1. So I played against Mr. Green here, and he opens up on turn 1 Copperline Gorge, Noble Hierarch. I'm like,
interesting.
And
bold.
We talked about rogue decks last week that didn't get recorded eventually, but we kind of talked about, what do you do when your opponent plays something weird? So I'm like, maybe this is some kind of like Naya aggro. Okay. So I killed the Hierarch on turn 1, because that's just what you do.
Yeah, you bolt the bird.
Bolt the bird. Turn 2, it's like, Grove of the Burnwellows. Now I'm really confused. Play Strangleroot Geist. Okay, so then I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is like some kind of red-green version of the like Pongify deck, I guess. Like maybe it's like kind of Teamer Pongify with Strangleroot Geist. Pongify, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. Saying it wrong for years. Anyway, the game just played out. You had turn 3 Combat Celebrant. I'm like, what the heck's going on here? I don't even know. That thing probably needs to die. We're just going to kill that. Anyway, I get game 1. And I'm like, okay. So, some kind of red-green creature deck. I did see Gore Clan Rampager game 1 as well, which is pretty scary.
Sure.
So that one was in my brain for like the rest of the match as well. So I'm like, okay, bring in some extra removal. Got these spell snares. These are pretty sweet. He's got a lot of 2-drops. All right. Got some static casters. You showed me like a lot of 1 toughness things. All right, we're good.
We got it.
I just game 2. He goes turn 1 Vial. I'm like, okay, didn't see that one game 1. Kind of makes sense. Like play like a Delver or something on turn 1. He's like, end of turn activate. I'm like, okay, is he just like trolling me here? Like whatever. He puts in Dryad Arbor. I'm like, can you do that? I don't think that's ever happened before.
Is that allowed?
There is a Dryad Arbor. If you look at the list and you don't see it, the
It's
Dryad Militant
Militant
is
is
supposed to be
Dryad
Dryad
Arbor.
Arbor. So I'm like, okay. And then he proceeded to cast many Eidolon of the Great Rebels, which is pretty good against Delver, as you might imagine, because it's all 1 and 2 casting cost things. And also Scabclane Berserker, which is kind of like Eidolon's 5 through 8. I did not win this match.
This man defeated me.
But I wasn't even mad. I was like, you know what? That's awesome. And this is the deck that he obviously brewed up himself, and he said that he had played a lot of Hate Bears style decks, and he wanted to give it a go with playing like kind of a red green style of Hate Bears. So if that's what you're going for, then yeah, I could see it. I guess like if you're not looking at it through that lens, you're like, okay, some stuff going on here, some weird numbers. But
There you go.
yeah.
Greenwood Hate Bears coming to F&M near you.
And let me tell you, I didn't even see, like, Forked Bolt would have just dominated me. That card would have just destroyed me. Thundermaw Hellkite, I had no answer to that card. So, yeah, he didn't even draw all his good cards against me. He still cursed me.
That's pretty good.
So, but yeah, good on him. 10th place finish is pretty respectable. And definitely sweet with his own brew, so.
I was just taking a look here, and I just wanted to double check and make sure before I made this announcement about the Open. No Lantern Control top 8 did, or top 32. Just want to make sure that doesn't hold true for the Classic, but just saying.
Hey, it's a great day for everybody.
I agree.
No Tron. No.
Well, Tron,
No,
was in
yeah.
the finals.
No,
The Open.
Yeah,
Yeah. No
okay.
Tron. Yeah.
I'm not crazy.
But everything else in the Classic kind of looks. We do see Merfolk show up here in the Classic, as well as Mardu Pyromancer, which is sort of a new hotness on the streets. And then Band Control showing up at 16th place, which is kind of interesting.
I have not seen this list. So it's basically blue-white with Glittering Wish.
Yes.
Aw.
Yeah, look at that sideboard.
Now I'm intrigued.
Ooh, that's
All one of sideboard.
Oh, of course.
Gab Nassif would be proud.
Got the meddling mages, the war monks, the detention spheres.
Fracturing Gust.
Oh yeah.
Dragonlord Dramoka.
Oh yeah. Mike knows about that card.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's again, don't cast spells when they cast it. Like immediately when they resolve it, you go okay, end of turn, cast spell queller, and they go okay, don't. They're tricking you.
They're tricking you.
So the best part about that story is like that happened, and then I took my turn and passed back to him, and he slaughter packed it on his turn, my spell queller, so I dispelled it. And he was like okay, and then he attacked and I blocked. And then my goal was to burn out the Dragonlord Jamoke at the end of the turn because I forgot the text that it had. I just knew I couldn't counter it. And the opponent next to me was just like, "You have to stop." He's like, "You have to stop." And he felt so defeated. I felt really bad.
He just like maybe they'll get it this time, and they didn't. Yeah, things are rough, but this is a pretty spicy list, if I do say
This
so
is
myself.
an interesting take, if I do say so myself.
Glittering Wish. Whew.
Glittering, like Splash Green, only for Glittering Wish. And then, of course, the War Monk and I guess Fracturing Gust is technically just white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're basically splashing green for, like, the Wish into Rocks, War Monk, Sigarda, Host of Herons, and Dramoka?
I mean, sure, but it also is just like either the versatility of being able to be like, oh, I'm just gonna grab this sideboard card.
That's true.
That's pretty devastating in this matchup for 2 mana.
That is true.
So yes, that's really good. You know what's really good? Playing a fracturing gust against Affinity or Boggles, game 1 when they don't expect it, or just like grabbing this Supreme Verdict. Okay, cool.
I'm just gonna say, you know what? This list looks fun.
You know what? Yes, I agree. Glittering Wish is a fun Magic card.
I
So-
probably would not play this deck, but it looks cool.
I do have to say that this is another card that's coming out in Rivals that probably won't see a whole lot of play, but we get a wish in Rivals of some persuasion. It's a 4-mana wish, but that's kind of an effect that we haven't seen in Standard in a while, which is pretty interesting. It's a story card. I forget what it is. It's like
it's not Death Wish.
Amnesia, is that what you're talking about?
No.
No, what am I thinking of? It's a story card, and that's what popped in my head. I'm sorry.
The story card from Rivals. The
Induce Amnesia is one of those.
It's a Diabolic Tutor that also lets you tutor outside of the game.
The one that they're using the portal.
Portal, yeah, to grab the Immortal Sun.
I don't know why my mind went to Amnesia, which is hilarious. Because
No, that is a draw 7. So one-sided. Is it a draw 7 or
no,
draw?
you draw cards equal number you had.
Yeah,
It's like Windfall, but it's an enchantment.
And you can get, if you crack the enchantment, you get the cards back.
Yeah. So it's like a one-sided jar of sorts.
It's not a jar. It's like Windfall.
But
sorry, I don't know where that came from.
I think that's weird that we like. I mean, that's going to be a weird thing that is theoretically, will be in Standard. I don't think it's good enough. The wishes are usually pretty cheap, and that's why they see play, even if they're narrow. But it's weird to see that in Standard. I think it's not really effective that they go towards a whole lot. So grabbing stuff from outside of the game. But cool. I know we have a Legacy Classic to discuss. No standard, just opens or classics or anything like that to talk about. We obviously don't focus a whole lot on Legacy, but Richard Thompson took down the tournament with Blue Red Delver, defeating Matthew Dilks. Matthew Dilks playing lands.
Yeah, Blue Red Delver. Actually good in that format.
Yeah, it turns out when you give it
the
force of will, it's pretty great. We also have like Metalworker, Grixis Delver, Burn. Hey, pied by Robert Sparren. Grixis Delver was pied by Frank Ivankic. Death and Taxes, Eldrazi Post, and another Grixis Delver showing up in the top 8. So if you like Legacy, take a look at some of those Legacy lists. I mean, not saying we don't like Legacy, but we don't play it.
I mean,
Legacy's fine.
There's a Metalworker deck. So.
And Metalworker's sweet. Burn, sweet. I don't know. That's all I got. Anyway. I believe that is everything we have for competitive. Before we close out the show, I want to give out a shout out, of course, to BCW Supplies for being our lovely sponsor, for providing us with some products to give away to you fine folks. And if you have any, concerns about your cards, your collections, whether they be cards or comics or what have you, sports collectibles, definitely check out bcwsupplies.com and buy some protection for your collectibles. It's very important to maintain the value of those things that you've invested time and effort and money into, and they want to help you do that. So definitely check them out. So, wrap up. What do we have this weekend? Of course, pre-releases. So if you want to play with some Rivals cards in a different format, a different limited format than you've had with Ixalan before, definitely check out your local store. And of course, Comic Town will be holding 5 pre-release events over the course of the weekend, so be sure to check them out. We, of course, have the banned and restricted announcement on Monday, which we've already shared our piece on. So when we record next week, we will be sure to let you know what kind of shakes out and what we expect from that going forward. And then, of course, what you truly have been waiting for, the Rivals Palooza will be next week. We'll be discussing all of the Rivals of Ixalan cards. Well, all the ones worth discussing. And of course, we
all 7.
Well, I mean, we'll have more cards to talk about theoretically. I mean, depending on what they do, like it will definitely
just say any deck that's made a top 8 of a GP in the last week is banned. The entire deck. Basic lands too, unfortunately. Sorry, Forrest. Green, you've been good for a long time.
Island rough. Sorry,
it's time to go.
Not making the cut anymore. But we definitely will be able to talk with full information Unless they rope-a-dope us again. I hope they don't.
When they say no bans, and then like,
Like Friday.
after we record, then they're like, oh, just kidding. We're gonna
Emergency ban.
Friday bans. So
Our Guardian gets banned from Modern too.
it'll be an exciting time next week. I'm excited to have like the full information and really be able to dive into these Rivals of Ixalan cards. So, but that'll be next week. Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you're listening to us on iTunes, feel free to leave us a review. It helps with visibility and making sure people, we get new listeners and followers and everything like that. If you ever want to reach out to us, you can do so via our Twitter. It's just Your End Step. When you add us, it's at Your End Step, or email address at yourendstep@gmail.com, or Facebook. Also, if you are downloading us via MTGcast, feel free to take a look at some of the other awesome shows that they have to offer there. Definitely worth your time and effort. Plenty of Magic content to consume on a daily basis. But that's going to be everything for us this week. We thank you so much for your time today, and you have a great one. Bye.